Can the technical team permit me to screen share, please? Thank you very much. So my name again is Denis Yuni. Thanks, the moderator, all protocol duly observed. I'm here to kickstart this presentation of BECANS IV, which we title Assessing Business Environment in Nigerian States for Potential Investment and Inclusive Development. So by way of introduction, I want to start by reiterating the acronym for BECANS, which is Business Environment and Competitiveness Across Nigerian States. It is a flagship program by the African Heritage Institution that began in 2007 with the first BECANS, BECANS I. Since then, we've moved up to, we are now in BECANS IV, where we're able to, in BECANS IV, include some indicators that borders around gender and issues on technology. So the whole idea of BECANS is to promote evidence-based survey on Nigerian business environment with a focus on the subnational environment in a bid to push states or commit states to compare and compete ultimately to improve business environment. The BECANS scorecard ranges between 0 and 100. 0 being the worst business environment and 100 being the best business environment. Of this scorecard of 100, we attribute 30% to the infrastructure and utilities benchmark, 30% to regulatory services, 20% to business development support and investment promotion, and lastly, another 20% to the security benchmark. Now, these benchmarks are being fed by measures, 19 of them in all, and the 19 measures are determined by 112 indicators. At this point, it's important to give a little background that these indicators were not just randomly picked. At the initiation of BECANS in 2007, all key stakeholders, including the National Bureau of Statistics, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of National Planning, and other international stakeholders came together to design what we now know as BECANS based on indicators, measures, and benchmarks as it is that represent the business environment. So as a way to get a scientific determination of these ranks so that we are guided properly. So why do we do BECANS? Typically, we do BECANS to analyze the business environment, and because we understand that the business environment is critical to reducing poverty, reducing inequality, improving well-being in general. And if the business environment is not optimized, then we can't even talk about economic growth and economic development. And the logic behind BECANS is the fact that it's a subnational jurisdiction that covers or compares states across board. And we look at a whole range of factors ranging from contract enforcement, justice administration, tax construction, property registration, and so on. 119 indicators in all that you can see when you get the full document. So the current nature of BECANS is plagued, the current nature of business environment in Nigeria is plagued by all the things we know and all the things Prof and the profs have been mentioning. Lack of access to finance, poor transportation system, poor energy, lack of industrial parks, poor PPP frameworks, and so on and so forth. So this is the background that guided the indicators that were now used to determine BECANS. The key tasks of BECANS are, one, to employ the BECANS model of benchmarks, measures, and indicators to assess business environment across states, to collect, scrutinize, empirical data for evaluating the benchmark and indicators, which is what we have been doing up until this point. And now what we are doing is to prepare and disseminate business environment scorecard of Nigerian states, as well as associated reports and policy briefs. Fourthly, to facilitate the use of business environment scorecard reports for policy dialogue and advocacy. Then to promote the use of the business environment scorecard reports as evidence for state governments. And finally, to be able to provide feedback to the state governments. The role of Afri-Heritage in promoting a sound business environment is key because they galvanize or collaborate with the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget, and National Planning, and several other stakeholders. They've been doing so since 2006 to be able to provide an empirical evidence-based survey or results that guide states in developing their business environments. The data collected for this study were both primary and secondary. The primary data were gotten with the use of design questionnaires and key interviews directed to public and private organizations. The secondary data were made up of national published data as well as state published data. But wherein we had both state and national data, the national data was prioritized for the sake of uniformity across states. Now, at this juncture, I want to get into the overall results before my senior colleagues will come in to bring in the detailed results by the benchmark. So overall, we say that BECANS IV shows a decline from BECANS III, from 50.9% in BECANS III to 46.04% in BECANS IV. And this nullifies the gains that we recorded between BECANS II and BECANS III, as BECANS II increased from 45.4 to 50.9. That's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the data. The classification across geopolitical zones shows that in BECANS III, South-South was the first, but it turned out to be the fifth in BECANS IV. And the first in BECANS IV is the North Central, which was the fourth in BECANS III. It's also important to note that the Southeast dropped considerably from the third in BECANS III to the last in BECANS IV. Now, the performance across states shows that overall, Anambra came first with a score of 55.3%, followed by Niger, and Plateau with 54.5%, Oyo State with 53.2%, and Ondo with 52.3%. The last five, the best of the last five is Abia State with 41%, Akwa Ibom with 38.9%, and the very last being Sokoto with 36.01% of the 36 states plus FCT. Some important notes to take is that Lagos moved from the first position to the sixth position between BECANS 3 and 4. And then Cross River State moves from the second position all the way back to the 35th position. That's serious. Again, Niger moves from the 18th position to the second position. So we can establish that while some states are performing better, some are retrogressing. And then finally, looking at the four benchmarks across board, we can clearly see that infrastructural and utility benchmark, the regulatory service benchmark, the business development benchmark all dropped between BECANS 3 and BECANS 4. Meanwhile, the security benchmark increased marginally from 45.5 to 47.4. However, this increase does not catch up with the initial score of 62.7 that security benchmark recorded in 2007. So we seem to be far off from where we started off from, especially in terms of security. At this point, I want to hand over the baton to Professor Onyuku to take on the infrastructure and utility benchmark. Thank you very much.